Hi, I'm Tom Hannafin from Impact Wrestling, and you're listening or watching Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. Well, we are live, pals. I thought, this is
been replaced.
No, I just figured, this was Tyler's usual spot. So I just figured with him not being here, I'd step in because, I want to keep the roles pretty similar. I don't want to stress you out a little too much, Mike. So I figured I'd just step in here. So if I may.
You may.
Well, we are live, pals. As if that last interaction didn't already prove that to you. This is the Bill Apter Seal of Approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler usually. I am not Tyler, however. I am Coke Zero Conta, along with the one and only Mojito Mike. Mike, how are you doing this week, buddy?
Man, we are doing great. I'm glad you took the pressure of the intro off me. I like that. You know what? And to those listening, if you're hearing the beautiful voice of Adam Conta, that can only mean one thing. It's an Impact show, baby.
We're
got to be an Impact show.
Of course, it's got to be an Impact show. I'm the Impact Maniac, baby. I'm repping the gear here as one particular Impact superstar advised me to, and we may get to that a little bit later, if I may.
Though, aren't you supposed to be wearing it backwards?
True, but then you're not branding, man, and I'm all about the branding.
Absolutely, we will get there. Adam has had a few really good conversations lately. If you go to our YouTube, his chat with Taya Valkyrie is already up there. It will be on the show proper sooner than later. And then your most recent interview, we're going to throw to in just a couple minutes. I won't spoil it quite yet, but I know you had a lot of fun with it. I had fun listening to it. It was a great one.
Fantastic guests. Impact Wrestling always provides fantastic guests for us here at Count It Out, so we're always happy to have them on.
But before we get to that interview and talking all the Impact we can talk about today, I have something sort of Impact related I want to talk to you about. It's kind of a personal thing, actually. It came to my attention. I came to my attention recently, and I brought it to your attention. This month marked 25 years since the day that you and I met.
Yes.
1998, February of 1998, at a little indie show up in Englehart, Ontario, and it's kind of cool to me because, and I want to talk to you about what you remember because you were only a 14-year-old kid. I barely remember what was going on in 1998. I want to know what you remember of that night. But it's kind of cool to me that you and I especially have become such massive Impact fans over the years. Going back to that very first show, I mean, even back then, we were seeing some Impact talent. We got to see the one and only Scotty D'Amore at that show. We got to see future NWA and Impact World Champion Christian Cage. And of course, former NWA Tag Champion and Joey Legend. It was a great show, kind of a precursor to our love for Impact, if you will.
We saw a lot of Joey Legend that night, but that's a story for another podcast, maybe.
Probably more than a 14-year-old had to see.
Let's just say he was very excited about his Intercontinental title defense against Royal Black.
Well, that answers my question right there. Your memory seems to be pretty primed up about this show. Do you have good vivid memory of that night back in '98?
With no exaggeration, it was a night that changed my life forever. Just because it led me to the people that would become some of my closest friends, but also it opened my eyes to independent wrestling, which has led me down the sordid path that I've been on ever since then. I remember Scott D'Amore versus Brian Ireland in the opener. I remember Royal Black and Joey Legend. I remember the big battle royal. I remember the fact that they only had the one CD, so everybody came out to a song from Big Shiny Tunes 2. All except the Bushwhackers. They got their own music because They were the big headliners against Andrew Martin and Christian Cage, which of course I also remember. I remember that there weren't any Ken Shamrock t-shirts, and I was a little bummed out about that. I remember that you were convinced Diamond
I,
Dallas Page was
I
going to show
remember
up
the
at some
DDP
point.
did not show up that night.
I loved it, man.
uh,
And it's one of the reasons why I love independent wrestling so much today. It's a big reason
mm,
why, when I get to go out and do shows with groups like Rock Solid Wrestling, it's like a drug to me because I get to hear all those kids in the audience that are enjoying it the same way that I did. And it makes me realize that,
yeah.
I'm a part of something that's making memories that those kids are going to remember when they're near and 40 and talking on a podcast, which will all be holograms by that time. And, it'll just be implanted directly into their brains.
I'm the exact same way, man. I hold that night dear to my heart because would I still be a wrestling fan had I not gone to that show? Of course I would. Would I have gotten as into indie wrestling? I'm not sure. I got the bug that night. I really did. I saw a different side of professional wrestling that night. Until then, wrestling to me was grandeur. It was WrestleMania. It was WCW Nitro. It was massive. It was bigger than life. It wasn't 60 chairs in my high school gym. You know what I mean? It wasn't Luke and Butch sitting down with a bunch of 16-year-olds pulling out their teeth and laughing at us. That's not what indie wrestling was, or that wasn't wrestling to me. Seeing the entire roster back in '98 when kayfabe was still very real to me, seeing the entire roster sit around a 10-foot table at one of the only local restaurants in town, all sharing a meal together, that blew my fucking mind. Because later on you saw the same guys fighting against each other, acting like they hate each other. It started something for me. It became very different. Do I still love the grandeur? Of course I do. But I think there's a reason why I still love indie wrestling as much as I do. There's a reason why I always felt gravitated towards smaller companies like Ring of Honor, like Impact, because it gives me that feeling of 1998 again. It gives me that feeling of being in that small crowd, that small environment, and there's something different about it. And I loved it in '98. I love it in 2023. Just like you and Rock Solid, I feel so blessed and so privileged to be part of the Barry Wrestling family, be part of the Destiny Wrestling family. I still feel blessed to be able to go around to all the wrestling shows. 25 years later, you and I are going to two shows later next month. After all these years, you and I still hitting shows together. None of this would happen if it wasn't for that one night in 1998. And I thank God for that night all the time, because without meeting you that night, I wouldn't be friends with Danny and Jeff and a lot of the guys that I've come to call my family. And I don't think that my wrestling fandom would be the same without that night.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the big part of it for me, is that I think when you have these shows and you go to these indie shows, the other thing that you get exposed to is the community. You get exposed to wrestling community.
Yeah.
The reason that night changed me forever was because I'd found my people. Up until that point, wrestling was just this thing that, this weird thing that me and Ray liked and nobody else liked in our hometown. We were the weirdos on the outskirts. And then we found other weirdos who liked this stuff, who were even bigger weirdos than us, because they were like, hey, we're going to actually try to replicate some of this stuff. So, I mean, when you're going to these indie shows, whether it's, your Barry Wrestlings, your Rock Solid Wrestlings, your Destiny Wrestlings, you're meeting other people that are into that community. Same with you. And then when you magnify it to something like an Impact Wrestling, it's on an even bigger scale. I find it very funny that, the last kind of show that we all went together where we were introduced to something at the same time was Impact Wrestling's Rebellion, back when they were last in Canada in 2019. 100%. And that we started on a new journey with that by being introduced back into Impact Wrestling, and now here we are today.
Speaking of which, you'll be happy to know, just recently I've gone back with the Impact Plus app. I've gone back to I believe I want to say it's October of 2017. I went right back to where TNA became Impact, and decided to start watching from there on, because I wasn't an avid watcher in 2017. I wasn't. I didn't become an avid watcher until after that. You and I went to that Rebellion show. And man, did I miss some stuff? You know what I mean? I missed some of Moose's like Moose's introduction into the world. I missed Rosemary's. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a Canadian boy. I saw a lot of Courtney Rush on the scene, but Rosemary's something different, and I didn't get to see her become what she is, you know, with the decay and everything like that. So I'm going back now and I'm watching a lot of that stuff, which is really fun for me. And I'm going to keep watching right up until I catch up to where we're at now, which is, as we said on the show several times, probably the best wrestling products on television today. And to prove that, we're going to talk about this week's No Surrender, what do they call it? Global events? They're not pay-per-views when they're on the free app. It's the global events, I believe.
It's not a pay-per-view if you're getting Impact Plus like I have, or you're one of their ultimate insiders on YouTube, but you can order them a la carte, if you will, on Fight.
That's right, on
the Fight app.
That's right.
So you know what? You want to call it a premium event, you want to call it a pay-per-view, you just want to call it a damn good night of wrestling action. It all fits, you know.
But before we get to that, I do want to talk about, I want to throw quickly to your conversation you had with a man who was very pivotal in a woman fighting on that No Surrender card. Of course, we're talking about Jay Vidal, who, of course, is always in the corner of Giselle, of the very talented Giselle Shaw. I'm going to tell you something. Whenever we can't make an interview, whenever there's an interview that Impact gives us and the timing doesn't work out, we love it. You're so gracious. We're to say, hey, can you do this? You always pick it up and you grab the bug and run with it. This one, I could have done it. It was in my time wheel, everything. But I sat there and I stared at a picture of Jay Vidal and I said, what do I talk to this man about? Because I was so scared that it was just going to become a conversation about Giselle Shaw. And he deserves much better than that. I'm so happy I gave it to you because you turned this interview. This was not about Giselle Shaw. This was about Jay Vidal. You, my friend, this is one of my favorite interviews Canada has done because you took this guy I think a lot of people may not know a whole lot about, and we learned a lot about him in this interview. And I credit you for that.
Well, thanks. And I think that after you hear this interview and as we keep watching Impact Wrestling, the world is going to know who Jay Vidal is sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. So please, pick it up right now. Is Adam Content and the one and only fashion template, Jay Vidal.
Counted Out is about to get a style upgrade. Man, am I excited to have Jay Vidal with us here today. Looking stylish as ever. Of course, you're the style expert here for Impact. Welcome to Counted Out, Jay. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, you know what? Me, the style expert, as long as I rocked Impact, baby, I'm in style every time.
Well, you know what? Then I'm going to join you right here and I'm going to put on my Impact hat. And then this way, at least I can be a little stylish today, just a little stylish.
Sounds good. Looking like it.
I love it. I love it. Let's start off by talking about how you were introduced to a lot of Impact fans like myself. You had a pair of matches against Eric Young and Jonah a little while ago, and you certainly demonstrated your tenacity by not only surviving those battles, but then coming back to Impact months later after having a chance to heal up. So tell us about, first and foremost, what was running through your head when you get told, okay, so here's your opportunity with Impact, global, company, but it's also against a dangerous madman and a monster.
So I remember my first match at Impact with Eric Young. I was nervous. I was like, because this is a guy that I saw on TV when I was a teenager. So now I'm going to be sharing a ring with him. It was pretty surreal. It was pretty cool. But at the same time, I knew it was like, okay, I got to step my stuff up and you know what I mean? Go in there and deliver. It was honestly surreal. And I don't know how else to explain it other than when I was sharing the ring with him, just looking across from him, time just stopped. And I was like, whoa, I'm here right now. This is awesome.
It's kind of like that dream come true moment, right? Where you can't believe, oh, wow, I'm actually sharing the ring with the guy that I used to watch on television. It's very surreal, I'm sure. So that leads me into my next question then, which is, how did you feel when a little bit afterwards you were offered a contract from Impact to come and be a peer to Eric Young?
So initially what happened was I had that match with Eric Young, and then I had a match with Jonah. But I didn't come back to Impact until about a year later, which was in 2022. So we're talking forward a year. Then Impact has a show over in here in Vegas in October of 2022. And I actually reached out to Gail Kim, and I told her, hey, I'm going to be available. Let me know, like, if you guys need a body or anything, right? If you need anybody getting tossed around. She ended up contacting me back and saying, hey, come to the show. We got something for you. And then it turns out that they were going to have me pair up with Giselle Shaw, which was just a match made in heaven. But yeah, I ended up getting my contract about a year after the Eric Young match.
Way better than just being a body thrown around, for sure. A little bit of an upgrade in that case, for sure. Now, you talked about Giselle Shaw. Now, after you put pen to paper on your contract, you quickly attached yourself to her. And I'd like to know how that connection came to be. Was it something that, you requested? Was it something that Impact came to you about? Or was there just something magnetic immediately between the two of you?
So there was something magnetic immediately, but it was what Impact put together for us. So it was Impact's idea, but I mean, it was one of the best ideas ever, right? Because her and I just bounced so well off of each other. Like, all the energy that you see reflected on camera, that is the energy backstage too, which is amazing. And it's awesome that, we could show that on camera during our segments, during our promos.
There's 100% of natural chemistry there. You guys can feel it as an audience. You feel it when you see those two together. So I got to ask, could you tell us something about Giselle Shaw that Impact fans maybe don't get to see? What's something about her that might surprise us to learn?
To be completely honest, what you get on camera, I think, is like, that's her all the time. That is like, the same way that Jay Vidal is Jay Vidal turned up to 1,000 on camera, Giselle Shaw is Giselle Shaw turned up to 1,000. But I think that's why people connect with her and connect with me and connect with anybody who's out there being themselves, because they know it's authentic. They know we're not going out there, quote unquote, playing a character, right? Like, yeah, there's situations that, we have to act a certain way or do certain things. However, that is just us turned up to 1,000. And I think that's the best part of it.
Absolutely. And I love it when those types of real personalities get to expand on television. And, speaking of television, you and Giselle coming back to TV, and specifically to Sam's Town in Las Vegas, triple header of events starting with No Surrender on February the 24th, where you're going to second her in her match with the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo. Then on the 25th and 26th, it's the fallout from No Surrender, all taking place in Sin City. So let's start with No Surrender and Deonna Purrazzo. On paper, you'd think the three of you would get along, but right now there's some major animosity there. Is this a case of just not enough spotlight to go around, or maybe is there some jealousy at play here too?
I'm sure Deanna's jealous. That's my opinion, right? Like, she's also might be upset because she thinks that Giselle Shaw broke her team up, which she didn't. You know what I mean? In my opinion, Giselle Shaw shouldn't be able to break a team up if the team wasn't going to break up regardless. So I think that that's where that all stems from. And then, of course, don't even mention the chili, right? Oh my God. Like, I can't tell you, I've already had 2 different like sets of clothes ruined because of this chili. So you add that on top of everything else, and it's led us over here to No Surrender.
Not to mention, she also doesn't have a world-class stylist accompanying her. So that's another reason for her to be a little jealous, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if she wanted my business card, she could get it. I could recommend somebody who's not as good as me, but is just like me.
There you go. Now you've got to be excited for that match, especially since this weekend is going to be a homecoming for you of sorts. As a resident of Vegas, what's something that a tourist should do that they're not going to find on the typical to-do list of attractions?
Over here in Vegas, I would definitely say, honestly, not on the. I mean, I'm honestly just a sucker for going down Fremont Street, for going downtown and looking at all the performers that are performing over there, because everybody goes straight to the Strip, right? But if you go to the Strip, the drinks are more expensive. So go to Fremont Street, where the drinks are nice and cheap, and you're able to see street performers too.
Jay getting you the hot tea and the deals, man. I love it. Absolutely. And of course, after Vegas, you're traveling to our neck of the woods for your first Canadian tour with Impact Wrestling, starting with Sacrifice Weekend, March 24th and 25th, and then just a few weeks later in Toronto, April 16th and 17th for the Rebellion pay-per-view and Fallout. Now, you work with a lot of Canadians at Impact Wrestling, and based solely on the interactions you've had with your coworkers, how would you describe a Canadian to someone who's never met a Canuck before?
Honestly, very polite for one, and very good energy. Like, I honestly don't think that I've met a Canadian person in professional wrestling that I didn't like, or a Canadian person in general that I didn't like. It's, I get along with everybody at Impact, and just it's it's a different type of energy. You know what I mean? So like if I see like the Josh Alexanders and the Giselle Shaws, the Scott DeMoores, like it's always like a smile on their face and like just good energy.
So we live up to the stereotype for sure. And then you want to talk about energy, just wait till you cross the border and we get some Timmies in us. You're going to see a whole other side of your coworkers. Trust me on that one. And speaking of your coworkers, two Canadians you work with include, as previously mentioned, your friend Giselle Shaw and possible future opponent Mike Bailey. Put a pin on that for later. Both of whom are going to be who join you as part of the LGBTQ2 plus community. Now, you actually made a little bit of history recently as the first openly gay male wrestler to sign a deal with Impact Wrestling. Now, was this something that you were conscientiously aware of or at the time of the signing, or was it something you were more made aware of when it happened?
It was something that I actually, like, when I was putting pen to paper, I didn't know. I didn't know until we were talking about breaking the news, and they contacted me and they said, yeah, so we think you're actually the first openly gay male wrestler to sign with us. And I was like, oh wow, okay. And then I just ended up like hanging up, and I was like, that's cool. And I was like, well, no, that's not just cool, it's groundbreaking, right? It's breaking down these barriers that were once put up and seemed to be unbreakable, and here we are. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you've done a lot to try to represent LGBTQ2 plus people throughout your entire career, which, given pro wrestling's less than kind history with that community, couldn't have been easy. So not everybody listening or watching this interview is going to understand why you'd be willing to put yourself out there in an industry that has often been cruel to anything outside of that heteronormative narrative. So can you maybe try explaining exactly why being out and proud in pro wrestling has been really important to you in your career?
Yeah, I think representation is important because somewhere, someplace, there is somebody watching, some kid watching who is gay, and they don't have anybody to look up to, right? Anybody to relate to. I never had anybody to relate to that I saw like myself when it came to that in professional wrestling. So I had to find my outlets in a different way, right? I had to look for people who I could relate to. If it was a Hispanic, I would be Eddie Guerrero, right? Or, a pretty boy, Shawn Michaels, or, somebody who's just free and creative, Jeff Hardy. So those are the ones that I would always go to, but I never had anybody who I saw like myself. So when I started doing indie shows, being this character, which is just me turned up to 1,000, right? I would see an influx of people just come to me after shows and just thank me for what I'm doing because I represent their community, which is, my community, to the LGBTQ plus community. I definitely think it's important for that reason.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that in the last year or so, we've seen Impact Wrestling, excuse the pun here, but take pride in the diversity of their locker room, and not just from like a multicultural standpoint, but from the standpoint of making it a company that not only is accepting of trans athletes, gay athletes, bisexual and non-binary athletes, etc., but actively going out of their way to highlight them as members of that community. Now, I mean, am I reading too much into this, or is there a vibe or an energy there that makes it feel different from other places that you've worked?
Yes and no. So I think that and I think this is for all the right reasons, right? When it comes to certain people being hired, Like, I don't think I was hired based upon my sexuality. The same way that I don't think that Mike Bailey was hired because, he's part of the community, or the same thing with Giselle Shaw. I definitely believe that they look for talent above all else. So if you got the talent to go in there and, perform your craft to the highest level, and you happen to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community, it's like it meshes together. So I definitely think that that's more so where they're going with it. They're not like, other companies have done in the past, like, oh yeah, we want to hire this person, but he's gay. What might that bring upon us? They're more so like, who cares that he's gay? Let's bring him on because he is an amazing performer. And the fact that he's gay, now you get what I'm saying? It's welcome. It's a welcome change.
They seem to have that same mentality of the representation being important, and rather just the fact that having you as part of that community is more of a bonus in that, yeah, great, they're talented and they're fantastic for our brand, but hey, now we can also promote the fact that if there is somebody part of that community who's watching TV, who's maybe never had a role model from that community on television, Impact Wrestling can say, no, you do have one. And they're in Jay Vidal, they're in Mike Bailey, they're in Giselle Shaw. They have the representation, and we're proud to present that on TV and say, these people are part of our community as well as that community. And I think that's fantastic. I love that. And I'm so glad that Impact seems to be promoting that and trumpeting that. It certainly must be a huge change for you going from a kid feeling like you had no representation to now being that guy, for sure. All right, we're going to wrap things up here today because I know you got a lot to do, got to get ready for Vegas, but we always like to have a little bit of fun. We love playing games here on Count It Out. So I've got a game for you. We're going to play, Jay. It's called Jay or Nay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the name of one of your coworkers at Impact, and you're going to tell us, where they rank style wise, maybe if you've got a tip for them about how they can kind of up their game a little bit here. I'd love to hear your feedback on it. Are you ready?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble. Let's do it.
All right. Let's start off with a man who many would consider a fashion plate in his own right, Zicky Dice. What are your thoughts on Zicky Dice's style?
1,000% Jay. He does amazing. Every time I see him, I compliment him on his outfit. Sometimes he'll even walk backstage with his dog, which is awesome. So Jay, 1,000%.
All right. How about Mickey James? Hardcore country is not just a lifestyle. It's also a personal style.
Yes, Jay. Yeah, she walks in and she takes everybody's breath in the room. She's stunning.
All right, let's move on to the little weirder side of things. How about Black Taurus? That whole the whole cow and bull thing. Does that work for you?
Let's go nay on that one. And I just think that, if he was just to put a shirt on or something to, something to just surround everything else, I think it would be Jay, but we're going nay.
There's some room for improvement there for sure.
There's some room for improvement.
How about keeping on that darker side of things? What about the Death Dolls? We got Taya, Rosemary, and Jessica, 3 very different styles there.
Jay, in that I actually do like their style, but nay, because Rosemary speared me.
There you go. I mean, a little bit of personal animosity's got to come into play there for sure. How about the Bullet Club? Chris Bay and Ace Austin. They've got some very unique. They've got some pretty unique style for sure.
Definitely Jay on that one. I mean, I always see Bay come up with the crop top shirts. I'm a sucker for a crop top shirt. Jay on that one.
Awesome. Let's talk Dirty Dango. He likes to make it weird, but what's his style like? Is that weird?
You know what? I say Jay only because it's trend setting, right? He's over there moving those hips. I don't think I've seen hip movement like that in a while. So on the hip movement alone, Jay.
He's definitely got some unique talents for sure. And we'll finish it off with an easy one. Giselle Shaw.
Oh, Jay, without a doubt. I mean, I'm the one who picks out her outfit. So, you can't nay that.
Jay, all the way, Bay. You have been a fantastic guest here on Count It Out. We've loved having you. Please come back anytime. And we look forward to seeing you style all over Las Vegas, your hometown, February 25th, 24th, 25th, and 26th. Then coming over to Windsor for the 24th and 25th, and Toronto, 16th and 17th. Get your tickets now. Don't forget to watch Jay every Thursday on Impact Wrestling, Access TV, Fight Network if you're here in Canada, or all over the world on YouTube. Ultimate Insiders, Impact Plus. Jay, thanks again. This was a very, very wonderful and enlightening interview for my style. I think I'm gonna pick up a few tips now.
Yes, yes. Just get the hat, turn it backwards, more of a crop top shirt, and you'll be fine.
All right, I'll work on it for sure. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Bye.
And there you have it. Adam, again, thank you so much for picking the ball up and running with that. Beautiful interview with Jay Vidal.
Hey, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity, and shout out to Impact Wrestling for hooking us up with Jay. Like I said, big things coming for him and for us as an audience.
100%. With that said, let's go quickly. We're not going to break down the whole card. We never really do, but let's talk about the things we loved and if there's anything we hated about the No Surrender card. I will start off with the pre-show because holy fuck, that was a pre-show. Mike Bailey and Jonathan Gresham had one of the matches of the night on the pre-show.
Yep.
And guys, if you didn't hear me the first 6 times, Mike Bailey and Jonathan Gresham was the fucking pre-show. That's insane to me. It really is. How was that match?
It was incredible. Honestly, I think it's an early contender for match of the year, to be honest with you. And I mean, when you look at the wealth of talent that's involved with Impact Wrestling, I think this is a great demonstration of how deep that well actually is, because like you said, this was a pre-show match, and yet it was the kind of thing that you would expect to have been talked about on the main card. But I think that goes to show you that Impact Wrestling really knows what they're doing, because, you know, a pre-show is designed to get you to buy the show. And I'll tell you something, if I'm just scrolling through YouTube or someone's got that on the TV and I see a match that good, it's going to make me perk up and go, hey, wait a minute. I think I'm going to want to check this out. I might be willing to plunk down my $15 or so on Fight to go and check this show out, you know? And then on top of that, we had what I actually thought was an excellent contest between Deonna Purrazzo and Giselle Shaw. I know we've been talking about her and Jay recently, but honest to goodness, I thought their match was really way, way, way better than even I expected it. And I had high hopes for it. Plus, I love the new addition of Savannah Evans to their team. I think that's a great addition. It made me curious to see what's going to happen next. This actually was a really great pre-show because it did what it was supposed to do, which was get me excited for the show and create intrigue about what's this story doing. And oh my God, look at these athletes. Impact Wrestling does not get the credit they deserve for how smart they book their shows, but this was a prime example.
I couldn't agree with you more. That was a fantastic match. Just like, how could it not be? You have two of the best knockouts this division has seen in decades going up against each other. You knew it was going to be good. Before we continue on to the main card, though, I do want to go back to Mike Bailey for a second and talk about how this guy's on fucking fire right now, okay? And not just in Impact. I mean, he finished off 22 with a match of the year contender against Josh Alexander. He starts 2023 with a phenomenal program against Kenny King. Now he goes in he does this match with Jonathan Gresham. He's going to be wrestling Kenta in a week or two. Mike Bailey and motherfucking Kenta. That's insane to me. He's all over the indies. He's doing his stuff right now with his beautiful wife Veda Scott. They're the commentary team for Crossbody Pro Wrestling here in Cambridge. You know, they're all over the place. But he just did something, and I don't know if you've seen it, Adam, but I've got to talk about this for a second. He just main evented the last GCW show with Nick Gage. And Mike Bailey is so smart. So smart. Because Mike Bailey comes out, nobody dislikes Mike Bailey. You can't hate Mike Bailey. Nobody can hate Mike Bailey. Well, Mike Bailey came out and said, I can't be a babyface against Nick Gage. Not in GCW. I can't do it. But you're thinking, no matter, okay, Mike, you can try to be a heel. It's not going to work. So what does Mike Bailey do? I don't think I've ever seen anybody do this. In the middle of MLJ doing his big, I'm sure you've seen a Nick Gage match or so in your life. It always starts off the same way with the big introduction for Nick Gage. Not even halfway through it, Mike Bailey snatches the microphone away from MLJ. And he says, wait a minute. He gets this big intro, and all I got was Mike Bailey. Let's start this fucking match.
Yeah.
Right there.
Heel
Right
tactics
there,
101 right there.
Mike Bailey became a heel. And I sat there with my jaw dropped. I didn't think you could turn Mike Bailey heel. I just didn't. And Mike Bailey, I don't think anybody told him to go out there and be a heel. I think Mike just said, they're not going to cheer me against Nick Gage, so let them boo me. And he went out and he got booed. It was fantastic. He played a great heel through it. They had the exact match I expected and I wanted. It was a little bit of a Nick Gage match. It was a little bit of a Mike Bailey match. A little bit more of a Nick Gage match, but there was some Mike Bailey in there. And Nick held his own. Mike held his own. Mike fought. Thank God there was no light fuse because Mike Bailey fought Nick Gage barefoot. What the fuck is wrong with this man? But he did it. He had a phenomenal match. Anybody who hasn't seen it, even if you're not a big GCW fan, if you're a Mike Bailey fan, go check out this match, man. It's the very last match of the middle of the night pay-per-view, right on Fight Plus. You don't even have to buy the pay-per-view. As long as you have Fight Plus, it's on there. Great match, great pay-per-view, great match. It all ended with Masha Slamovich coming out and announcing that she's the next contender for Gage's title, which was just mind-blowing. That's going to be a great match in New York. Love that shit. Man, GCW is starting to win me back. I'm telling you that.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, man. Better wrestling in 2023 after a phenomenal year in 2022. I'm looking forward to that. And, speaking of Masha Slamovich, she had a fantastic contest against Mickey James over the weekend, too. Some nice little throwbacks and nods to Mickey's past in there. I think that's one of the big things that everyone was talking about, but did a great job in there against Mickey. I'm really curious to see where Masha heads from here and where
this is what I want to
she's
ask
going
you.
in.
This is what I want to ask you, because they did a great job of making her look strong against Mickey. They never once made her look weak. But here's my question. Slamovich is now 0-3 for her last 3 title shots. She lost twice against Jordan and now once against Mickey. What do you do with Masha now? You can't just let her keep going for titles because it kind of hurts the story of the legacy of the title, right? What does she do now? Does she go back to the drawing board? Does she start basically at the bottom, fucking people up so she gets back to the top? Does she have her own little last rodeo per se? What do you do with Masha at this point?
I think obviously you have to cycle people in and out in that division and do different things. And I think what I would like to see with Masha is I would like to see her do one of two things. Number one, I'd like to see her either start a tag team. I honestly was very surprised at the result of the Knockouts Tag Team Championship match at No Surrender. I thought for sure that the Hex was going to win it because I thought that was a nice, fresh program for the Death Dolls. And it would be believable that such an experienced championship caliber team like the Hex could potentially come in on their first night and take away those titles. I'm not saying I'm upset about it or sad about it, but I'm saying I was surprised. But I think we could do something interesting with Masha to see how she does in a team because we haven't seen that aspect from her. Or I could see her doing something that she's already proven she's willing to do with Nick Gage, which is go after the men. Why wouldn't Masha Slamovich be the kind of person to go out there and challenge beat up a Johnny Swinger and then come after a Zicky Dice after that, or a Crazy Steve? Given what we just saw with Monsters Ball the weekend before, she could hang, in some of those hardcore environments. I think that would be pretty neat. In my grand scheme, I could definitely see her maybe and Jordan teaming up together to form a tag team to go after the men's tag team titles. I honestly could see that happening.
I really like that because you brought up Johnny Swinger. I would love for her to go and basically do what Barry Horowitz did and tell Santino, I want his deal. Let me win 50 matches in a row. And then she'll do it.
It's not unprecedented. The only thing I would be concerned about with that is that we just came off of her on a long win streak story. Yeah. I wouldn't want to repeat that again too soon, but I definitely love the idea of her.
But this time it could be all men.
True. And I mean, that does give it a new twist. It absolutely
Yeah.
does give it a new twist. Yeah. So I mean, look, as long as Masha's still on my TV, that's all I care about.
Exactly. I also was surprised of the finish of the tag team match, but it's because I expected Jessica to revert to her old ways of Havoc and go back to James Mitchell. That's what I was expecting. I was expecting her to turn. Now maybe I still think that's going to happen. I do think it's going to happen down the road. Mitchell already sort of alluded to it when he did the whole the thing that I always hate when they do in wrestling, where he's like, I recognize you. I don't know from where, but I recognize you. When everybody else is going, it's fucking Jessica Havoc, asshole. That shit always bothers me, but that's the stupidest, silliest little thing. So they've already alluded to the fact that James Mitchell has realized something in Jessica. So I do think that that's going to happen eventually. And then from there, where does it go? Do Rosemary and Tyler remain a team? Do they get pissed off at each other and break up? Who knows? Nothing but gold can come from that. But then, who knows? Maybe if they go if Jessica joins with as Havoc again with James Mitchell, maybe you can get your way with the tag team, and maybe we could see Havoc and Masha Slamovich.
Hey, I wouldn't mind that pairing either. That's the beautiful thing about the Knockouts division, is that because it's got such a deep roster, you really could go in a number of different directions with any of these characters, and you have intriguing stories to tell. And that's really what it is at its core, right? You're telling stories. So with Masha Slamovich, I think that she doesn't need to be at the top right now to tell interesting, compelling tales. And that's what I'm hoping for in 2023.
Speaking of interesting and intriguing tales, let's jump to a man that I believe in, and that's your digital media champion. And one of my favorite stories going right now, the stuff with him and Moose and Cardona and all that, all wrapped into one, is one of my favorite things going in Impact right now. And the dot combat match is one of my favorite parts of the show. It was so silly, but then it was entertaining at the same time. Very fun. You gotta love that Moose can be extremely violent. He could be hard hitting. He could be believable as the strongest, most toughest man on that roster. But then he can also not take himself too seriously. He could put on a VR headset and start dancing like an idiot, and it doesn't ruin him. It doesn't do anything bad to Moose. I don't know if Moose at this point. I don't know if Moose can do anything to ruin himself in the fans' eyes. I think that he's got the fans now. What do you think about that?
I think that Moose is one of those guys that the fans want to cheer, and I think they've wanted to cheer him for a while. And I have a feeling that a lot of this silliness that we're seeing from him in this feud from Joe Hendry is going to maybe begin the start of him going down that path. At least that's what I hope, because I'm really getting sick of cheering for a guy that I'm supposed to hate. But I can't help but respect the guy so damn much, even though he's fantastic at what he does as a heel. But I think that we're headed down that road, and I'm not going to be mad about it.
I think it's the way to go with him right now. He's got to do something different, because what else do you do with him as a heel right now? You put him back on. It's the same problem that we're having with Masha Slamovich. What do? You go put him back in the title picture? You know what I mean? And then what? We've seen that now. We've seen that a couple times. Let him do something different. And I think turning him face, and then eventually, we could be getting Moose and Cardona, which would be a phenomenal matchup, phenomenal program. Him feuding with the major players in general would be a lot of fun. There's a lot you can do with him right now. Throw him in the exhibition. Throw him against Trey Miguel. There's nothing wrong with that either. There's a lot you can do with Moose, with babyface Moose, with dancing Moose. Lots you can do with dancing Moose.
Easily my favorite part of that match.
And then, of course, I know I'm probably skipping over a few things, but I got to jump to our main event, because they did something I think was so smart, and I think they did something that needed to be done. They reminded us, without having to put him over, they reminded us why Rich Swann is so important to the Impact roster.
Some of us
I
never
think-
forgot. Just saying, down since day
100%.
one.
No, you are right. You never gave up on Rich Swann, but for the last 2 years, Rich, and they played this in this program many times since his loss to Omega, he never got back to that platform. He never got back to that main event spot, and keeping him at that level for so long may have felt doing him a disservice, but it all paid off in the end. And if you're a big Rich Swann fan, maybe you're upset he didn't beat Josh, but I think it's for the best. I don't know where he goes from now, but wherever he goes, you're reminded that he is a main event player. He had one of his best matches against Josh this week. I truly believe that. He got tough, man. He got rough. Him and Josh beat the shit out of each other, especially in the last 5 minutes of that match. I've heard some criticism of the match saying that, it started a little slow and then picked up. I don't feel it started slow. I feel it started as a Josh Alexander match. That Josh had Rich going at his speed, and it was very smart. He was being calculated, and then Rich started getting more pissed off as the match went. I thought it was a great story.
I feel like Rich Swann is kind of like Snow to Canadians. Like, we know how good he is. We always seem to forget how good he is. And then when he has a match at that caliber, we're reminded, oh, right, he's one of the absolute best in the world right now, but we've just forgotten about him. It's the same way that Canadians react when we see snow for the first time every winter. We're always so surprised about it. Like, oh, where'd this stuff come from? Like, we didn't know this was going to happen again.
Yeah.
And I feel like, much like Snow and Canadians, we take Rich Swann for granted. And I think that the dude has been, for a number of years now, a cornerstone of Impact Wrestling, in that you can put him in tag teams, you can put him in the X Division, you can put him in the main event scene, and Rich Swann will not only carry the ball for you, he'll get it across the goal line every single time. Rich Swann is one of those guys that honestly fits the criterion, I think, of most underrated wrestler in the world right now. And I think that the more people who watch Impact Wrestling, the more people will start to realize that too.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, before we get, this show has already started setting up the next big pay-per-view, which is Rebellion in April. Of course, Steve Macklin winning the six-way, becoming the number one contender for Josh's title. So that's already set for Rebellion. We got Josh and Macklin, which is really a fucking no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. I've got my tickets for Rebellion. I can't wait to stand there. And I hate to say it, I'm a big Josh Alexander fan, but I can't wait to see Macklin become the Impact champion that night. I truly believe that that's the night, a year removed from Josh becoming champion in the first place. It's the perfect setting for Macklin to dethrone Josh. I can't wait for that to happen. But before we get there, we have a few other hills to climb. First, of course, the show that you and I will be attending in just a few weeks in Windsor, Ontario, being the next premium event, Sacrifice. And then right after that, a show that is very closely related to your list here today, and that's the Multiverse United, I believe they're calling it this year. Yes. And where this year, last year it was the Multiverse of matches. It was Impact and a bunch of other federations. This year, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's specifically Impact and New Japan, right?
100% correct. And I'm so looking forward to it. I messaged my friend immediately and said, great, now I have something to look forward to watch that weekend.
So now, before we go, I want to talk about this leads into your list. Your list, of course, is going to be New Japan versus Impact Dream Matches, which I can't wait to talk to you about. Before we get there, I do want to talk a little bit about Sacrifice. Now that No Surrender is behind us, we've seen the things that happen at No Surrender. We've gotten very little answers of what could be in front of us for the card. There's no matches yet set for Sacrifice. my question is, now that you've seen what's happened, what do you foresee us walking into in Windsor? I've got a few ideas, but I know you're the big idea man. I want to hear yours first.
I mean, I think we could see, in terms of a main event picture, I think we could see things go a couple of different ways because we know we're headed towards Macklin versus Alexander. The best strategy is to continue to build for that. So I could see some sort of tag team contest to pit Alexander and Macklin against each other in a preview or tease. But I could also see them going a pick your poison route where maybe Macklin picks Alexander's opponent and Alexander picks Macklin's opponent. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think obviously we're headed in the direction of Trey Miguel versus PCO, which I absolutely did not know that I needed in my life, but I do.
Yeah.
Especially,
by
the way, I just want to take a quick 30 seconds to talk about Trey Miguel and Crazy Steve putting on a pay-per-view caliber Monsters Ball match that was absolutely captivating, left my mouth agape several times during the contest. And for God's sake, if you are going to check out anything from Impact Wrestling this week, honestly, that's what I'm saying you need to go and watch.
100%.
Trey Miguel versus Crazy Steve, match of the month for sure. Absolutely. My favorite match from Impact Wrestling in the last week or so. So please go back and watch that. I've
been telling this match to Tyler since it happened. I think they said during the broadcast that there's been something like 50 Monster Balls matches in the last 20 years.
I don't remember the number, but it's been quite a few.
I personally have only seen, let's say 15 to 20 of them. Out of the ones I've seen, I'm going to tell you flat out, I think this was my favorite one. It was just so well done.
It's up there. May have to be a list that we'll go through one day because I could sure as heck sit down and watch a couple of Monsters Ball matches. Won't hear me complaining for sure. But in terms of any other matches that I see happening down the line, it may not be out of the realm of possibility to position Giselle Shaw in a match against Mickie James for the Knockouts Championship. But maybe that's a little too early. They may save that for Rebellion. Personally, I'm still waiting to see when Tasha Steelz comes back and where she fits into this whole scenario. I have that to look forward to as well. There's a lot of different personal issues that are out there right now that I think, may want to fester a little bit before we get to Rebellion. But make no mistake about it, much like with any Impact, premium event, this isn't going to be a throwaway or a B show. I mean, we just saw what a quote unquote B show or a non pay-per-view exclusive is presented by Impact Wrestling, and it's of the same quality as everything that they put together.
They don't treat those quote unquote smaller shows any differently than they do their pay-per-views. They really don't.
No, 100%.
The other ones, I guess they're now calling their big four. You have your Hard to Kill, your Rebellion, your Slammiversary, and your Bound for Glory. Yes, those are four major shows. But I'll put any Sacrifice or No Surrender against those any day of the week because they're just as good, man, and they have been for the last year or two. Coming to Sacrifice, I'm going down the same road as you with having a tag team in the main event, but I'm going a little different than you. I am forcing Josh Alexander and Steve Macklin to coexist as a tag team, just to piss them off, just to get at their goats, and I put them in a team up against Sami Callihan and Diener.
So I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I'm going to tell you something right now. That was the entire foundation of my list up until Battle in the Valley. So may I just say a quick screw you to Eddie Kingston, who ruined my list. I had to start at the bottom and rebuild my entire list because my major dream match was supposed to be Josh Alexander and Steve Macklin versus Kazuchika Okada and Jay White. And that all got scrapped now thanks to Eddie Kingston. So I respectfully say screw you, Eddie Kingston.
Respectfully. It would have to be respectfully. My last thing I'm going to say about sacrifice before we move on to
I'm
the
just
list.
kidding. I'm so sorry, Eddie Kingston. Please don't hurt me. I'm so scared of you. Please don't. Please don't come and hit me with your back fist, please.
That. Last thing I want to say, it was a great standoff between Tommy Dreamer and Bully Ray at the show. They did this perfectly. They didn't have a match. They did this great face-to-face podcast, if you will. It was phenomenal, with it going exactly how anybody would expect it to go, with Bully playing the chicken shit through the whole thing, and then of course showing his true colors as he always does, throwing coffee. Did he throw the coffee in Dave's face or in Tommy's face?
In Tommy's face, and then he just kind of threatened Dave.
Okay, so it went that way. I don't expect to see them face to face till Rebellion, but you got to believe that they're going to do something in Windsor, right?
I think that Bully will have something in Windsor. I don't know if Tommy will, though. It depends on how badly they play up the injury to Tommy's face. If
sure enough.
Here's what I'll say. If they don't play it up as too severe, I think we will get Bully and Tommy one-on-one in Windsor. And then I think they will continue that. And in Rebellion, I think we're going to get a hardcore war. So it'll be Team Bully versus Team Tommy.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. But what do I know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they could also still do Tommy could hook up with a woman again, and Masha could go back with Bully. We could see another intergender tag match, which I would be very fine with.
Shoot, man, that would be a great match. That's something I would really like to see in Windsor. That intergender tag match you just said, damn, man, that would, yes, please make that happen.
And it doesn't matter who. I don't know. I'm sure Jordan's going to be, because they're doing this whole Mickey tapped out thing. So I'm sure Jordan's going to go back for her title, probably at Rebellion. Well, what is she doing till Rebellion? Maybe she hooks up with Tommy Dreamer. You know what I mean? It
is possible. I mean, you've already had Mickey built into this, so much of this, though. I think it would be a shame to kind of ignore that.
The only reason I say it's not Mickey is I expect her to be a fighting champion. And defend her title at every show. That's kind of where I expect to see Mickey going with this title on.
She can take a break.
But with this team up of Bully Ray and Masha, that was an unexpected surprise for me. That was one of those I didn't know I needed this thing until I saw them on camera together. I'm like, of course they would be perfect together. I loved it, and with him playing the little bit of a puppet master, and her being, not stupid. She's not a stupid character. She's not a stupid woman, but she fell for it, right? So to see that happen, to see him be able to pull the strings of a character so strong like Masha Slanovich, that was cool for me to see. I'd like to see more of that. I really would. Maybe in Windsor, I'd like to see that.
Me too.
Moving on, the very next show, only a few days later, they're in Los Angeles. It is the Multiverse United. It is Impact versus New Japan. There's lots we could be seeing. I don't care what we're going to see that night. What I care is what we're going to see in your brain. We got tonight Adam Content's Dream Matches. New Japan, Impact. Hit me with your number 7, brother.
Well, Thursday, March 30th, 2023, we'll see several matches. This is not going to be one of them, I imagine, but I would start things off. Now, I should probably clarify a few things here. So I should start off by saying a couple things. Number one, this was maybe the hardest list I've ever had to do. And at first I thought it would be really easy because I'm like, oh my God, there's so many great dream matches. Yeah, that's the problem. If I put on every match that I wanted to see on this list, it would be a 2-night, 20-match Wrestle Kingdom kind of style show. And I couldn't do that. There's only 7 spots. So I want you to know that this was a lot of contemplating for me. Do I go with just personal favorites? Do I go with what I think will try to please the most people? Do I try to get the most of the names in there? Do I try to get the biggest names as possible? So a lot of thought went into this list, to be honest with you. And I think you're going to see that when it comes to the matches that I would have liked to have seen. But the other thing I want to talk about is the way I'm structuring this list, because this isn't going from a, you know, least desired to most desired list. I'm actually going to give you this in the match order that I would book it. So what I'm doing is number 7 is my opener, number 6 is my number 2 match, all the way up into my main event. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's how I'm going to open up the show. We're going to get the team of the Bullet Club: Ace Austin, Chris Bay, El Phantasmo, and Tajiri Ishimori, none of whom are strangers to Impact Wrestling, taking on the team of Time Machine and Kevin Knight. So what we get here with this match is a mixture of both New Japan and Impact talents, but they are more so representing their stables and more so representing the teams that they represent within those organizations. New Japan is big into multi-man tag matches, so I think this shows a great introduction to those Impact fans who may not be familiar with that. But also, we've basically got 8 of the best junior heavyweights in the world today, if not of all time, when you're talking about guys like the Motor City Machine Guns. It's going to be fast paced. It's going to be entertaining. I don't think there's a bad I don't think this is a bad way to start off the show.
Absolutely not. Anybody who saw No Surrender this past weekend saw Time Machine take on Bullet Club in a different formation. Of course, we saw Bay Austin and Kenta take on the Guns and Kushida. And it was one of my favorite matches of the night. It was just nonstop. It was fantastic. We saw Kenta fly, for fuck's sake, and you don't see that. Oh, it's one of those things you can actually say only in Impact Wrestling. And you saw, listen, me, I love me some Guns. I always have. I absolutely adore Ace Austin. I have since the night you and I were at Rebellion in 19. I became a fan of him that very night, seeing him wrestle. But let me tell you something, man. There's something special about Chris Bay. We've known it for a while. We've known it for a couple years. But each time I see him on an Impact pay-per-view, just a little bit more. His stock rises a little bit more with me every single fucking match. I don't know why Chris Bay, right now, I'm looking at him and he's my MVP. He's my guy that I want to put on posters. He's the guy I want to sell these pay-per-views. So to have him in this match that you're talking about right now, to me, I'm already buying your pay-per-view because Chris Bay's on it.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate that. And, a lot of great talent to be considered in there. And we want to follow it up with something a little bit different. So in my number 6 spot, the second match of the card is only going to go about 15 minutes max, but it's going to be 15 minutes of some of the best wrestling that anybody could put on the planet. I am going to put the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Television Championship on the line, and Zack Sabre Jr. is going to defend against the obvious choice, which is the Octopus, Jonathan Gresham. I think that this one is a no-brainer. I think everybody knows that this.
I thought you were going Mike Bailey. To be perfectly honest, I thought you were going Mike Bailey. But Jonathan Gresham is just like it's take one. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Bailey is certainly a great choice in terms of a clash of styles for sure. And he was my number 2 choice. When I structured this card several times, he definitely was in that spot to be slated in there a few times, but I just went back to Gresham because it is just literally one of those, who is the best technical wrestler in the world? And have
Gresham and Sabre ever fought?
I'm sure somewhere down the line they have fought, but if they have, I'm not privy to it.
I haven't seen it. No.
And not under these circumstances. The 15-minute time limit kind of harkens back to the ROH Pure Rules.
Well, I was just going to say, I know, mate. I don't know if Tony owns the rights to Pure Rules or whatever, but I'd make it a Pure Rules match, man.
Hey, I'm sure Zack Sabre Jr. would say that it doesn't matter. Bollocks to your rules. He's still going to win, So I don't know who would come out on top on that one, but I just know I'd be entertained as all hell. That's what I know. Number 5 on my list is easily the most personal match, and it'll be very evident why coming up for me anyway, because it's just 2 of my favorite wrestlers on either side of the roster. Plus, it is the first and I think only, according to this, champion versus champion showdown. I wouldn't put any belts on the line. It's just an interesting contest. I would put my man, Trey Miguel, the X Division champion, against the current New Japan Pro Wrestling Junior Heavyweight champion, Hiromu Takahashi.
Don't do this to me.
Come on, man. What a great contest that would be.
You can't. You couldn't pay me to book that match, man.
That's what I wouldn't. I would just say, okay, you guys go do your thing.
Exactly. You just go. I couldn't choose a winner out of that. I just couldn't. You know, because in the back of my head, I was thinking the same thing about Gresham and Sabre, but I could pick a winner of that. I can't pick a winner of this one. That's impossible.
Here's the thing. I know a lot of people would say something like, hey, why didn't you put Mike Bailey in this spot? You know, you've given 2 big championship profile matches to other guys other than Mike Bailey. First of all, let me say, be patient. Mike Bailey is on in this card. He is coming. And secondly, I would give the spot to Trey Miguel because, as I've said steadfastly, I think Trey Miguel is a guy that doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I agreed with everything that he said at No Surrender in his promo. And I think by putting him in a high-profile match with Takahashi, my hope would be to expose him to as many people as possible to see, yeah, this dude's the real deal. Everybody's been sleeping on him for far too long, and he would have his stock elevated by being in the ring with a guy that is a bit of a darling to the indie crowd or who may not know about Miguel, and I think they need to. Plus, I also think that, you know, like I said, with Takahashi, like, the guy just doesn't have bad matches. So put him in there with another guy that will go toe-to-toe with him in his style, give him something fresh, a new challenge. Come on, man. I think that's a winner every time.
Could agree with you more. Speaking to Trey Miguel, I agree with everything you said, everything he said. He has been one of my favorites. He was one of my favorites all year last year. We talked about him big time the last time you were on the show, breaking down the year of 22. Miguel has done nothing but shine since the Rascals, fell apart. But I now it's like how there's nowhere to go with Trey Miguel but up. Even though, yes, he's a title holder, I get it. He's succeeding right now. Usually you say that about a guy who's on the bottom. No, he's definitely not at the bottom, but it's not possible for him to drop right now. It's just not possible. There's only one way for Trey Miguel to go. I am very, very excited. The weekend of the Windsor show of Sacrifice, on the way home from that weekend, Tyler and I will be stopping by to a small toy convention, and we plan on running into Mr. Miguel himself at that toy convention, as well as the greatest broadcaster going today, Mr. Chris Van Vliet. So to see those two guys in one spot, that's going to be a dream for me. Tyler ran into Trey at a Destiny show a few months ago, and he says he's just a great guy, just salt of the earth. So I can't wait to run into him in a couple weeks.
Should be an interesting conversation for sure, and I'll be a little jealous of that one. Absolutely.
I'm telling you right now, I might bring a can of spray paint and ask him to tag me.
No greater honor, sir. No greater honor. All right, moving on to my number 4. We're going to do some 6-man tag action, as I'm going to get the team of Eddie Edwards, Moose, and Macklin together to take on what many consider to be an unstoppable force in New Japan, Los Ingobernables de Japan, Tetsu Naito, Shingo Takagi, and Sanada. A lot of this stems from 2 different things. One, I wanted to put Naito on this card somewhere because he's easily one of the biggest stars in New Japan. But the number of he'd match up with him, he'd match up with him, he'd match up with him. And I just want to see Shingo and Macklin fight. So I figured this was going to be the best way to put them all in there together and have it. I think that, the 6 men involved in this match could main event any show. So I think putting them all together in a powder keg would be really entertaining.
Now, the Japan side of the list makes 100% sense, of course. I'd like to pick your brain on where you came up with the 3 men from the Impact side. You literally chose 3 men who right now are lone wolves. They don't get along with anybody, let alone each other. You're putting 3 men who are not good in teams in a team. what made you choose Eddie Edwards, Moose, and number one contender for the world title, Steve Macklin?
Couple of different things. Number one, I didn't want to mix up heels and faces together. So, and one of the things that I've noticed about New Japan and Impact Wrestling is they kind of have a reverse dichotomy in that New Japan has a ton of great faces at the top, not so many heels.
Yeah.
And Impact's kind of the reverse. They've got great heels towards the top of the card, not as many faces. So
100%.
I saw
you got Josh holding it up there, and and then all the heels. Yeah, I got you.
So I thought, these three were strong competitors. I wanted guys that were top of the card guys for Impact because, LIJ is one of the, if not the most popular stable in New Japan. So I really wanted to put a force against them. But also, I like the intrigue of three guys that all consider themselves the best, all want to represent the company, but have to get along with each other and put their differences aside in order to prove that they're the best by getting a win against, two former IWGP World Heavyweight Champions and a G1, finalist like Sonata. Ultimately, I think if I was booking it, I'd easily put over, the New Japan contingency on that one, LIJ, just because of the things you had mentioned. But I think the in-ring stuff, bell to bell, that's where your tickets are going to be sold for this one.
I mean, you've got me. I'm buying it 100%. I mean, you're putting three of the best wrestlers I think has to offer in this match. I love the way your brain works. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Then let's move on to my number three. One I think that is going to be a little controversial. I think I'm going to get a little bit of backlash from this one, but this is another one where I'm just going to say, well, it's my list, not anybody else's, so neener. And that is the New Japan Pro Wrestling Women's Championship matchup. There's a match that's been talked about and rumored, and everybody wants it. Everybody but me, because as much as I love Mercedes Moné and Mickie James going after one another, that's not the match I booked. I booked Mercedes Moné versus Taya Valkyrie. And
okay. You got me. You got me right there. I love that.
We've seen Moné and Mickie James in other companies kind of tangle with one another. This is a first time ever dream match. And again, much like with the Miguel and Takahashi match, this one is so that people remember who the hell Taya Valkyrie is. Because I think that even though I absolutely love her as part of the Death Dolls, I think that there's a lot of people who may have been introduced to her in her most recent run, but didn't know about her record-setting run previously, who don't know that she helped break some of those gender barriers, that don't know about her work in AAA, don't know about what she's doing on every indie scene, women's division out there with MLW, XPW, all the waves she's still making. This is a woman, I think, that is criminally underexposed. And I think a match like this where she can go with Moné, hell yes. Remind everybody who the hell Taya Valkyrie is. And that's what this match is about for me.
I'm not a massive Mercedes Moné fan. I have not been. Do I respect her body of work? Of course I do. You know what I mean? But when she made her big debut in New Japan, I wasn't one of the ones standing up going, cheering. Is it great she's there? Is it great for the company? Is it great for her? Yes, absolutely. I'm just not the one who's going to be up on my feet when she's winning the world title on her fucking debut. That's not me. With that said, is it stupid to leave her off a card like this? Yes, it is. If you're trying to make some money, you got to put her on the card.
Especially if I just may, especially when I think it's a very obvious statement to make that the Knockouts division is one of the key drawing factors for Impact Wrestling, and to not have them featured in some way. In fact, the only reason I'm not featuring them more is because New Japan technically only has Moné and Kairi listed on their roster right now. Otherwise it would be, Impact versus Stardom, which, by the way, not a bad idea if anybody is listening out there that may be in a position of power. Not a bad idea at all.
You could have put Monet against Mickey James. You could have put Monet against Master Slamovich. You could have put Monet against Jordan Gray.
And I thought about it.
You went the one way that I can't believe I didn't even consider. And it's the best way possible. Taya Valkyrie, out of the people I just named, all phenomenal performers. I don't think anybody's going to get that match out of Monet the way Taya gets.
Yeah, again,
I think you're getting your best match from Taya.
I agree. I think that, I mean, there's so many dream matches with Monet against most of those knockout stars, but to me, that's the first one I want to see. So that's why it got that slot for me.
Yeah,
all right.
I got you.
Time for my runner-up match. Honestly, not a lot to say here. Sometimes you can't improve on what's already done and done right. So number 2, my co-main event is Will Ospreay and Mike Bailey. That match is going to be a banger. Yeah. It's a dream match. Why improve on perfection? I'm not going to do it.
Again, I'm going back to my Mercedes Moné camp. That's how I feel about Will Ospreay. I'm not a fan. Okay. Do I think he's a tremendous wrestler? Of course I do. But am I clamoring for Will Ospreay matches? That's not who I am. That's just, he's not my guy. From a personal standpoint, I think he's a piece of fucking shit. But from a wrestling standpoint, I try my best to separate that, and I watch those matches. I'm going to say he's 60-40 with me. 60% of the time, I'm enjoying his matches. 40% of the time, I find him boring as fuck. The minute I found out about him and Bailey, it was like, well, of course it's him and Bailey. And I've never been more excited in my life to see a Will Ospreay match than I am right now.
Yeah, it's going to be high-flying perfection. And I think that, Impact got it right. New Japan got it right for this show. And there's a reason that it's probably the biggest match on the card and from a hype perspective, because it is exactly what this list is about. It's a dream match. So rather than tinker with it, I'm going to use the old adage here and say that it ain't broke. So I ain't going to try to fix it. Which leads me to the main event. Oh, man. I told you what it was going to be originally. And I tried not to stray too far from that formula. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, you're probably sitting there going, oh, Millie, there's a lot of names he hasn't mentioned yet. And I know people are going to call this a cop-out, but hear me out on this. The main event is a 6-man tag. But
okay.
But you have to understand that the reason I'm doing this is because that's first and foremost, if you're trying to showcase both Impact and New Japan, 6-man tag main events are nothing new in New Japan. In fact, they're quite common. They're quite frequent. And it's a great way to showcase a lot of top names in a single bout, which is what I'm trying to do here. Because what I think we got here.
Just ask Ray Beauchamp. That's an inside joke, but it's worth it. Go ahead.
I think a 6-man tag is going to be the way to go here. So here are my choices for Team New Japan. We of course have the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada, teaming with my favorite New Japan Pro wrestler, Hiroshi Tanahashi, the Ace, and Jon Moxley, taking on the Impact team of Impact World Champion Josh Alexander, Frankie Kazarian, and Rich Swann. So let me kind of explain why I went with these 3 guys. At first, it may seem a little strange to put those 6 together, but I feel like they are mirrors of each other. Kazuchika Okada and Josh Alexander, aside from being the world champions for their respective companies, they're also both considered the best wrestlers of each other's company and of the world. Let's be honest. If I had to make a singles match, the main event, it would have been Okada versus Alexander. There's no question about it. That's the ultimate dream match. But again, there were other factors that went into this, so I didn't want to do just that. But I wanted those 2 to at least touch so that we could say that we at least got that chance. Tanahashi and Frankie Kazarian, I find, are 2 very similar guys in that they're both in the same position right now as older guys who have done a lot in the company, but are both being questioned in terms of their ability to still perform at that main event level and still go. And I think both guys have got that stuff in the basement, that thing that Sylvester Stallone talked about in Rocky Balboa, stuff that they need to get out and prove. And I feel like when it comes to this contest, those two match up with each other more than people realize. And when it comes to Moxley and Swan on paper, this doesn't look like these two guys would have anything in common. But the fact of the matter is, Swan, Callahan, Mox, they all come from that same area. They all came up in the business together, and I think that more so for Rich than for Moxley, obviously, I think I want this to show. And again, like that he's a guy that's criminally underrated, that, when he gets that chance to get in there, Swan can brawl. And you and I know this because we saw him do it in person in Toronto at Rebellion 2019. Check out your Impact Plus app so to know what we're talking about. The guy can get out there and brawl with the best of them. And I think
100%. We saw it just a couple of weeks ago in a match against Steve Macklin. He can hold his own in these tough matches. He absolutely can.
And when it comes to guys who are really heart and soul of Impact Wrestling, I think you have the three best candidates right here.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Alexander has represented the company as champion proudly, and even before that as tag champion and X Division champion. Kazarian is a guy that left the number 2 promotion in the United States to say, you know what, I need to go improve myself because I'm not satisfied where I'm at right now. I got to go somewhere where I know that I can represent and be the man. And that says a lot about his loyalty to Impact Wrestling and his love for that company. And like I said, Rich Swann is a cornerstone of that company, and he has been, I think, Impact Wrestling's secret weapon. And I'm just hoping that, with stuff like this, that he's no longer a secret. Okada, Tanahashi, their records speak for themselves. Their history speaks for themselves with New Japan. Moxley, I know people might question, but the fact of the matter is New Japan was the first place he went after the WWE. That was where he wanted to go. And don't sleep on, his US title runs. Don't sleep on everything that he's done in Japan, because that guy is over there. He is one of their own over there. So to me, I think this is a blockbuster match. If you can't see that on paper, look a little bit deeper, because I honestly think that this is a match that would get butts in seats.
No, you definitely sold me on it. I wasn't 100% sure when you first laid it down. You definitely sold it on me. I think the only reason it took me even a few minutes to get into it, though, was only because I already had my own biases on my own, and we'll get there in a minute or two. But on my own honorable mentions, on my own little list, I had the main event being Josh versus Okada, which I think would be a lot of people's kind of go-to. So for you to, my first thought was, okay, well, he's taking this match that is a given. This match could be, gift wrap for us. And he's just basically watering it down. He's throwing all these other guys into it. But that's not what you're doing at all. You really sold that to me. The selling factor for me is the passion. The guys you chose were the guys who live and breathe for their company, which I really enjoy. That's something I would watch.
Well, there it is. I did have some matches that I would have loved to have seen. Actually, well, like I said, there's like 20 matches I would have loved to have seen.
Right.
But there's a couple of other matches that I put together that would have fit in either an alternate universe, a multiverse, if you will, or just matches I would love to see that I still consider dream matches. And if you're cool with it, I wouldn't mind going through a couple of those with you.
100%. I've got 5 of them of my own, so I would.
Well, why don't you start with one of yours then? And because I'd love to hear your thoughts.
All right, I'm going to go with one of the weirder ones then. I've got Jeff Cobb versus Black Taurus.
Ooh, I didn't think about that one. I actually have Moose versus Jeff Cobb in my honorable mentions because I know we're getting that one. And honestly, that's the match I think I'm looking most forward to. It didn't fit in with the card I was putting together, but man, Cobb is just how has that guy not been a world champion yet? I don't understand it.
Well, Hasn't he though? Was Matanza ever world champion in lucha?
You know, that's a good point. I did not think about that. To have Jeff DeHaan figure that one out for us. He'll know. I'm going to tell you about I'm going to tell you about a match that I had on here. God, did it ever hurt me not to put Tama Tonga on this card somewhere?
I got him.
I bet you do. And I had him against several guys. At the end of the day, I think the match I would want to see from a bell to bell perspective more than anything is Tonga versus Macklin, though. God damn, could those two tear it up?
That would be ridiculous. That would be ridiculous. That would be so hard hitting. I would love to see that match.
Plus, I think the promos would be pretty good between the two of them too.
Damn right they would. I mean, look at the promos. You and I attended the ROH Supercard back in 2019. Remember the promos that the God cut on the Briscoes going into that match? They're some of the best, most hard hitting promos I've seen in a while. Tama could do those against Macklin in his sleep, and
100%.
Macklin could hang. You know, Macklin's no slouch.
So who did you put Tonga against?
I got Tama with 5 other gentlemen.
What? Okay.
I do. I've got Tama Tonga in an Ultimate X match.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to tell you, I did think about putting an Ultimate X match on the card. Didn't end up going with it. Please tell me, who are the other 5?
So I've got 3 New Japan guys and 3 Impact guys.
Fair.
On my New Japan side, I've got Tama Tonga, TJP, and Alex Zane.
Okay. I like it so far.
On your Impact side, I got current X Division champion Trey Miguel, Rich Swann, and Crazy Steve.
What an eclectic group that is. That's
and which is what I love about Ultimate X matches. Ultimate X, they don't always just throw all your cruiserweights. And we've seen Black Taurus in an Ultimate X. We've seen, you know what I mean? I love these kind of matches because you throw all sorts and shapes and styles into these matches, and that's what I tried to do here. Is Tama Tonga the first guy you think of when you think of an Ultimate X match? Of course he's not. And neither, considering the fact that he's goddamn legally blind, neither is Crazy Steve. But I think all 6 of these guys together could put on a tremendous show.
I would agree with you 100% on that one. And I'm going to take one of your guys from the Ultimate X match, and a guy that ultimately I put in my main event, Rich Swann, and I am actually going to put him in a title match in my alternate reality. I'm going to have him go for the New Japan Strong Championship and put him against Kenta, because I think at the end of the day, somebody's going to get their head kicked in, and we, the fans, are going to be the winners. I think those 2 guys would be an incredible contest. I think, again, remind people who the hell Rich Swann is, because I think those 2 guys could do a lot better than people give them credit for.
The 2 matches I have left are weird, man. Would they have made my top 7 if had this been my list? Probably not. But somehow they made pen hit paper, and this came out.
All right.
I don't hate it.
Okay.
Don't ask me why, don't ask me where I thought of this, but I kind of want to see Fred Rosser versus Matt Cardona.
Okay. I'll give you a little preview. Fred Rosser's on my list as well, and we're going to get to his match in a minute. God, that guy, holy crap. Battle in the Valley showed me how friggin' talented that guy is.
I still haven't watched it. I'm looking forward to going back and watching it.
It's so good,
I did hear that Rosser put on a fucking clinic that night.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But let's talk about him and Cardona. Like, that's a match that would not have crossed my mind. So why this one?
And I don't know why. All of a sudden, like, I think I wrote it down before my brain even figured out that I was writing it down. And then I looked down at it and I said, yeah, I want to see that match. Cardona has become, without a doubt, one of my favorite heels in the industry over the last year or 2. He's become just everything that I don't know. I have not been watching New Japan, so I don't know what kind of character Fred Rosser is even playing right now. But a few years ago, seeing him on a couple different indies, he was playing a white meat babyface, and I loved the way he was playing it. So the way he was playing that character, that I can do anything guy, that doesn't matter who you are, who you think you are, what you're going to say to me, what you're going to do to me. I'm always one step ahead. I'm always going to be that guy. I'm going to do everything I can to beat you. That's the kind of character that I remember him being a few years ago. And that's the kind of character I would like to see him going up against the ultimate villain, the ultimate piece of shit in Matt Cardona. I think it's your classic babyface versus heel feud. And I think sometimes it's one of those, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it kind of things. You're going back to your basics, you're going back to your classics, and that's the kind of match I want to see with these guys.
Yeah, to quote Will Smith, I ain't even mad. I love that idea. I took Fred Rosser and I did a complete 180 with his opponent. I would give Fred Rosser a shot at the Impact World Championship. I would love to see Rosser and Alexander go at it because you've got two guys, both with that can do, no days off, work hard mentality. Both just a couple of just thoroughbreds, man. Let them go.
Yeah.
Let Rosser show the world what he's capable of. Plus, I kind of like the idea of like he just lost the New Japan Strong title. So to give him, for Alexander to be like, I saw how you got screwed and I respect you. I want to give you a shot at this. You can build the whole ankle lock versus chicken wing idea. Again, I know that everyone would be like Okada, and like I get it, but like for me, this is a strong second place match for him. I think Rosser is another one of those guys.
People aren't giving Rosser the credit he deserves. They're really not.
Yeah.
Because he's not headlining on major stadiums. He's not headlining the massive NJPW shows. He might be headlining New Japan Strong here and there, but he's not headlining the big shows. So people don't seem to care. Fred Rosser is one of the best things the Indies have seen in a long time, and I've been saying that for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I think him and Alexander would tear it up. And two guys that I also think would tear it up, just for the pure glee of two things, both the absolute mayhem that they would cause, as well as the promos. I'm booking Bully Ray versus Eddie Kingston.
Okay. Yes, give that to me. Why would I say no to that? That's ridiculous.
Just the shit talk between these two alone. Like, could you imagine? No way, man. Yes, give that to me. Put that directly into my veins and pump it through.
My last one is one I don't want to see any promos. And by that I mean I need to see promos because they would be horribly amazing, stupidly bad, and I'm gonna love every second of it. This is my last one. This is another one just like Rosser versus Cardona, where my pen started writing words, and I said, "What are you doing, pen? These two things don't go together. What the fuck are you doing?" And then I said, "Yes, I need to see this." I am scheduling a retirement match in my universe against two battle-tested, war-driven, old-time, old-school veterans. And I'm going Gato versus Perfect Creation One himself, the man who is not human, PCO versus Gato in a retirement match.
Wow, that's an interesting one for sure. Why Gato, if you don't mind me asking, against PCO?
Because to me, Gato is the PCO of New Japan. He's that guy who's been there for fucking ever. He's part of the fucking furniture at this point. And yes, I know PCO hasn't been in Impact forever, but what I mean is he's been in wrestling forever. You know, he is to Japanese wrestling to what PCO really is to American and Canadian wrestling. He's just been here forever, and
one of them's got to go.
and both of them, you know, like I said, battle tested. Both of them have proven themselves over and over and over as some of the best of what they do. Gato being consistently successful through his career, and PCO being probably the best, second maybe only to Chris Jericho, at reinventing himself and taking nothing and turning into the biggest thing in the fucking world. So to see that come to a head, two massive legends. I don't care what most people may think, I do consider PCO a legend at this point. You're stupid to not think of PCO as a first ballot Hall of Famer, as a legend in the sport. He's been around forever. He's been doing this thing since the 80s. he was part of one of my favorite tag teams as a kid, for fuck's sake. And he's now part of my favorite wrestling scene in the world, and has been for several years, even when he was with ROH. Everything he's doing for the last several years is on par with everybody else. He's no fucking slouch. And so to see him and Gato go head to head in very different yet similar styles, I think would be very interesting.
I couldn't agree with you more on that one.
I will say my original match was him and Evil.
Oh yeah, that would have been good too.
But just for plain old violence. But then I decided to go the way of Gato.
I think I'd let PCO and Ishii go against each other, and just until one of them dies, because one of them would die. Or they would finally make the fans' request come true, and they would just fight forever. Like they would just literally just fight until the end of time.
And of course, I would let them have some insanely stupid, silly stipulation to the match. It's got to be a piranha death match, or a fucking electrocution match, or some shit.
I just want to talk about two other matches that I threw on there. Honestly, this next one is probably the one I'm most disappointed that I couldn't fit on. Let's consider this my honorary number 8. I would book Callahan against Shota Umino. Now, if you're not familiar with Umino, those of you listening who aren't familiar with it, Umino is Jon Moxley's protege in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Took him under his wing, called him the Death Rider. So now he's kind of adapted this like tough guy persona thing. And I think that this is such a good story because you have Callahan, who's Jon Moxley's former partner in the Switchblades, trying to take out Moxley's protege. And Callahan himself is a new protege of Diener in the design. So I think you could tell a fantastic story here with Diener saying, look, this is part of your initiation. This is your friend's protege. You have to rip his heart out, and his heart is Shota. So they have their match. Maybe you get Moxley involved here and try to talk some sense into his friend. Then maybe you get a tag match or something where you really let these guys let loose, and you've got you could even build up to a Callahan versus Moxley showdown. Like, to me, give me all of that. Take all my money.
Did. There's something I didn't write down. Because I did think of that, and this will be my next one before you hit your last one, because I forgot to write it down. But I did think of something earlier of a story where I had the Motor City Machine Guns come out and say, we're on both sides. We're not New Japan. We're not Impact. We're the Motor City Machine Guns. So, we don't know who we're supposed to fight with or fight for. And then you have Sami Callihan come out from Impact. You have Jon Moxley come out, and it's the Switchblades versus the Motor City Machine Guns. And I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, come on, put that in my veins too. I'll do that. And hey, since you brought up a tag match, let's finish off with a tag match. One I think you're going to have a lot of fun with. This is the match I'd put on a pre-show. We have the Good Hands, because I'm actually a very big fan of the Good Hands.
Me too. It took them a bit. It took them a few weeks to sell me, but they got me.
And I would put them against 260 pounds of pure motivation, the digital media champion, Joe Hendry, and a mystery partner who I would have be Toru Yano.
Okay.
Come on, Joe Hendry and Toru Yano together. Come on, man. That's a match made in heaven.
I don't think I'm familiar enough with his work. I think that's the problem.
You got to look up his stuff. The dude is essentially just the biggest gimmick in New Japan right now. Like, he just comes out and like the first move he always does is tear off the turnbuckle immediately. He's like known as like the king of the cheap win, essentially. Used to be this like huge badass. Like, he carries his DVDs around with him and like tries to sell them on the way to the ring. And like, trust me, the guy is just one walking gimmick, and he's amazing. Like, you have to see his stuff. Like, 2 years ago at the Rambo for New Japan, it was supposed to be that the final four competitors would then fight in a match to crown the king of pro wrestling at the next show. So the three guys that were in the ring had emptied everybody else. And then Toru Yano was the last guy. So he literally walked down to the ring, got in the ring, and the match was over. He didn't have to do anything.
That's phenomenal.
But that's
I
the
love
kind of
that.
that's the kind of guy he is. Like, he's like, trust me when I say look up his stuff and you'll realize, oh yeah, this is why he wants to put him with Joe Hendry. This makes
Yeah.
100% sense.
Just your description of it makes a lot of sense. I will have to go back and check out some of this stuff though.
He's great. So there it
I
is.
gotta tell you, man, I loved it. I love the list. Man, I think this is one of those rare times. I love your honorable mentions almost as much as I love the list itself.
Like I said, an alternate universe somewhere, man.
I know. And then there's an alternate universe coming in reality. We're getting this multiverse show just in a few weeks, which is tremendous. One of three back-to-back phenomenal shows we're going to be getting from Impact, starting with Sacrifice, moving on to, of course, the follow-up from Sacrifice, which you and I will be attending as well. Then, of course, you have your multiverse. Then, of course, you have Rebellion, which we're going to finally see Steve Macklin versus Josh Alexander. So much, and we're just talking about one company. There's so much amazing wrestling going on right now, and this is just one company we're talking about.
We're really spoiled, honestly.
We are. Anybody who sits there and whines because, you know, Roman Reigns has been champion for 900 days, so wrestling sucks. Wrestling's the worst it's ever been. Wrestling's the best it's ever been right now, and I truly fucking believe that. You can cry all day, as far as I'm concerned. You can sit there and whine about how much you want the Attitude Era back. I'm sorry, but during the Attitude Era, we had 2 TV shows, and yeah, and they were both, as far as I'm concerned, looking back, they were both okay. We're getting the best wrestling possible right now, and we're getting the most wrestling possible. You don't like Roman Reigns being champion for 900 days? Well, guess what? Josh Alexander's been champion for a year on the other program. Go watch that. You don't like that? Go check out what Bryan Danielson's doing on the other channel. You don't like that? There's 700 fucking indie promotions on IWTV, independentwrestling.tv. You know, there's too much wrestling. I never thought I'd say those words. There's too much fucking wrestling. It's driving me nuts. I've got 2 kids, a full-time job, school. I don't have time for all this wrestling. I just wish everything else would go away so I could watch wrestling. With that said, I would like to put you on the spot right now. I am putting out one more invitation in just a few weeks from now, going into our trip to Windsor together. I would like to invite you back on the show where I will be counting down the top 7 greatest Impact theme songs.
Ooh, wow, that's a big list.
It is a big list. And let me tell you, I've been working on it for 3 months. It's not getting any easier. But I really wanted to have it done before Sacrifice. And I can't do an Impact list without opening the door to our Impact maniac himself. So please, if you would, I'd like you to join me for that. I would like the Counted Out family to join us to watch that, because it's always a good time when Adam joins the show.
Well, I feel like with a list like that, I kind of have to join in, can I?
You kind of, I that's why I put you on the spot. I'm not giving you, it wasn't really a question. I know it sounded like a question.
It's really more of an ultimatum.
Yeah. So that's coming in a few weeks. We'll be back next week with a list. I don't know if it's mine or Tyler's, or if Tyler will even be here. I mean, you never know what's going on.
You might have to shovel them out of the snowbanks, man.
Our good friend and GCW correspondent, Good Walsh, has volunteered to take over Tyler's spot permanently if need be. So it's always good to be able to fall back on somebody.
No kidding.
With that said, man, you did the intro. I get to keep my spot. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's not even a guest spot anymore. The door is always open. You are just part of the team now. You know that. And on behalf of all the fun that we are going to have that beautiful weekend in Windsor just a few weeks from now, we have been Counted Out.
Cheers.